Today, let's chat a couple of tips and tricks that I like to explore with people that I'm working with when they have some painful sitting. To start, I like to use a yoga ball and a Pilates ball that's not plumped up all the way. You can use one or the other or both. And what we're gonna do is, one of my favorite things, I say it over and over again in videos, is just get curious about what our body is. We're gonna reserve judgments. If we feel pain, like, okay. We're not going to just sit there and dwell on the pain. And what we're doing with this, we're not searching to deep into the pain, like no pain, no gain. It's not the goal. We're just kind of exploring, what do I feel when I do this activity? So let's try. All right. First, we're gonna start with the pinky ball. If you're feeling really sensitive in your tailbone, you might want to use something a little bit squishier. I like to use a Pilates ball that's not plumped up all the way. And you can do the same thing with either ball. So with this, we're going to start on the outside. So not directly on the tailbone, we're going to come out to the side, find a wall. I like doing this on a wall versus on the ground, because when you're on the ground, it's harder to control not getting it directly on the tailbone. Also, if you're having painful sitting and we're wanting to take the opportunity to get curious about what's going on around the tailbone, if you're going directly on the tailbone, like you do when you're on the ground, it can kind of interrupt the process that we're working towards. So, getting a ball, starting on the outside, what do you feel when you just kind of push into it? Maybe it's tender, maybe it feels nothing. What happens if you take that same spot and you kind of move up and down into it? Roll around, up and down, side to side, what do you feel? Repeat this process, starting out, coming in, up and down, side to side, working as you get closer to your actual sacrum and tailbone, where eventually you go on there and roll around, being gentle with yourself. I also like using the wall versus the ground because it's easier for you to modulate how much pressure you feel. You can go really light, or you can really push into it, whatever feels best for your body. After doing that, you can do the same thing with a Pilates ball. Obviously, it's less pressure, it's more gentle, you cover more space as you get closer, and this one you can get directly onto the sacrum without as much pain, whereas this one, if you go directly on, it might feel a little more tender. Not necessarily a bad thing, just letting yourself be curious. After doing that, one of my favorite things to do is child's pose. So coming down, going from hands and knees, letting yourself go back. When you sit back into it, think about your sits bones spreading wide apart from one another. You see one of my kids in the background, they're cute. So as you go back, think about spreading wide from your sits bones, apart and away from one another. Let yourself feel what that sensation is. You can rest down. You can stay there for a minute, 2 minutes, whatever feels good for your body. After that, after kind of giving some nice release and stretch, I really like to give input to that muscle. So one of the ways to do that, I like doing that, is almost like cat-cow, but we're just gonna move the pelvis. So I'll turn to my side so you can see what I'm doing. So a lot of times when I do cat-cow, I like to cue people, all right, start from here. Can you get your sits bones to start the move? We're gonna do it a little bit different today. We're gonna do it thinking about your tailbone. Can you get your tailbone to start the move? So can you think about your tailbone, almost like a tail, pointing up? And then starting with your tailbone, can you use your tailbone, and think about the muscles attached to your tailbone, can you get that to lead going under? Tailbone pointing up, tailbone pointing down. If you're sitting there like, how do I know if I'm getting this right? You might feel a little bit of almost like a wink of your anus. You might feel that kind of squeeze a little bit to drive the move, and not quite opening, but release as you go the opposite direction. And that shouldn't be a squeeze hard, but just thinking about like the tail tucking between your legs, and then the tail coming up. After doing that, I really like to finish with bird dog. So coming like this on all fours, and I have this in the way, but you're going to go straight back and in. And when you go in on this, if you're feeling stable and not wonky in the hips, when you come in, you can pull your knee in towards your chest. Other side, coming out. And for that tailbone, when you come in, pulling in and not just ending there. Doing that 5 to 10 times and seeing how you feel. Let yourself be curious today. Give it a try. Let me know what you think.